Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for an extraordinary episode of the Show Up Dad. We have special guests joining us today, none other than Stephen L. Meeks and Marcus Miezo, co-founders of Father Magazine and the Save the Boy movement. But before we dive into today's captivating conversation, let's take a moment to express our heartfelt gratitude to our generous sponsors. This episode of the Show Up Dad is made possible by the unwavering support of Tall Man Equipment. As a leading provider of top-notch tools and equipment for the powerline industry, Tall Man Equipment is committed to helping professionals like you excel in your work. Discover their extensive range of high-quality products and unleash your full potential by visiting tallmanequipment.com. In addition, we'd like to extend a special shout-out to the Show Up Dad Foundation. This remarkable organization is dedicated to empowering fathers on their journey towards becoming the best versions of themselves. The Show Up Dad Foundation wholeheartedly believes in the transformative power of fatherhood and strives to support and uplift dads in their mission to show up, be present, and make a positive impact in their children's lives. To learn more about the inspiring mission and how you can get involved, visit the showupdadfoundation.org. Now let's turn our attention back to our extraordinary guests. Stephen Meeks, this guy is just fantastic. He is a licensed counselor and a founder of Good Soil Ministries. He strongly believes in restoring true manhood and bringing clarity and direction to men and boys in a time of confusion and discouragement. Stephen has dedicated his life to helping men overcome their past wounds, flawed messages, and personal failings. Through his counseling work, he has led many men to a place of clarity, strength, and confidence, and the restored hope. He also has helped them embrace a higher view of what it truly means to be a man in this noble role as a son, husband, and a father. In addition to his counseling work, Stephen is also the author of several books, including Save the Boys and Man About's Field Guide. These books provide practical help and encouragement for men seeking to navigate the challenges of manhood in today's world. Stephen and his wife Donna have been blessed with 5 adult children and 12 grandchildren. We are honored to have Stephen Meeks and Marcus Miezo as our guests today. And we're excited to just dive into a thought-provoking conversation about manhood, fatherhood, and the journey of becoming the best version of ourselves. So without further ado, let's welcome Stephen and Marcus to the Show Up Dad. Welcome, guys.
Thank you so much, David.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I wanted to start out, man, by just thanking both of you guys for joining us. Like I said, your guys' work is truly inspiring, trying to restore what true manhood is. Right now, I just want to take the time to ask Stephen Meeks to just share with our listeners what led you on this journey and why are you so passionate about helping men and boys in today's society, if you don't mind, brother.
Yeah, thank you for the chance to visit today and to share these things, and appreciate you making space here and leading in this discussion. I think is a very important one to be having about dads and men. And what kicked this off, what started this in me was I saw pain. I saw distance in families. I saw society was in decline in many ways. I saw broken hearts. I saw boys stumbling and fumbling to try to be something that they felt they should be, but they weren't clear what that was always. And I just saw a lot of pain in my counseling, just in observation, but also in my counseling. And I said, we have to do something to turn this around. It's devastating to the lives of everybody, not just the boys, but the wives of men who have not become men, and the children of those born to men who don't yet understand what manhood is. So we had to do something.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy how pain is a motivator for change, right? I see it too in the work that we do. A lot of times, a lot of men come to us when they've hit rock bottom, when they get that devastating call in the middle of the night saying they lost someone or they lost a job, which they had their identity tied into it, or even just their wife finally having enough and telling them, I am done. It's sad, and it does come from a place of pain, and I'm just so thankful for guys like you that are offering help out there.
Well, that scenario you just painted, even this last week, I've dealt with two families that have
Mhm.
the men have come to a point where they finally realize things are as bad as they are. I guess they didn't notice beforehand, but the wife finally says, "I'm done. I am done."
Mhm.
And these guys are devastated, and they don't know what happened or what to do. And we
Yeah.
just want to avoid that by getting ahead of it and see that stop, both for the women and for the men involved.
Mhm. No, and I know you guys work in tandem with each other. Marcus, what have you seen as far as the decline in society due to men not stepping up into their roles? Is there anything that you've witnessed and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, what I see is I see the repercussions of our past, right?
Yeah.
It's you know, back in the 70s and the 60s,
Mhm.
there was a lot of wayward boys, becoming
Mhm.
men. Their fathers were either in the war, they're or they're just busy working. It was a very common thing for the work ethic of men just to be absent.
Yeah.
My father was absent. He was there, but it was it was the 70s, so my
Mhm.
parents divorced when I was very young. I did. I can only speak from my own personal experience, but I'm imagining there's men that share the same story. Right? Is the father wasn't completely there. I had to kind of figure things out on my own.
Yeah.
And what happens is there's confusion there.
Mm.
There's confusion of what's right, what's wrong. Was raised in church, but I wasn't really, no one guided me, and gave me the guide to being the man I should have been.
Yeah.
So that's why I think you see a lot of, I call it adolescent adults
Yes.
walking around
Yes.
because there wasn't that model. So
Mm.
that's
Yeah.
that's my answer.
And
Yeah.
David, I was going to add to that real quick. There's a great story that I read about well, first of all, we see a lot of devastation. The prison systems are full of men because dads were not there to guide them, and now those kids are in the streets and just lost as to what to do and wreaking havoc, causing all kinds of problems and having problems. And so what I heard was about a story, and maybe many of your listeners have heard this, but a story about an African situation where the orphaned little bull elephants were captured and raised in captivity, and then they wanted to reintroduce them into the wild, so they took them to an area of a game park and released them, and they observed these young adolescents,
Mhm.
and they were fighting all the time, tearing up the trees. They were killing rhinos. They were wild, and so the park rangers put their heads together and said, "What is going on, and what do we do about this?" And so someone had the idea to bring in an adult male bull. And they
Wow.
brought him in, and he grunted a little bit, a little road growl, and pushed a little bit, and then everybody calmed down. The whole
Mhm.
thing calmed down, and it's just a very great illustration of what happens when there's a real man in the scene. Things calm down, and things go like they should. So it's why it's so important uh, that we help our men get their feet back under.
What a great analogy or just a picture that you painted with that. I had never heard that story. And man, that's pretty amazing. Just the influence that even elephants, animals, right, which are below us, just the influence that that bull elephant had there over those, for lack of better words, unruly, you know, baby elephants or children, right? and
Yeah.
just seeing how he had influence over them to calm them down. I had a guest of mine, a pastor, a good friend, a mentor, tell me one time, he's like, we're at his house doing a Bible study. And in the middle of it, he opened up the screen door and it was cold and he let in all this cold air, right? And I was like, Miguel, I was like, close the screen door. It's cold outside. I just been working all day outside and it's cold, And he's like, what did I just do? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, what did I just do? I was like, you just let in all the cold air. He's like, did I change the atmosphere? I was like, absolutely. He's like, oh, that's exactly what I did. I changed the atmosphere. That's how much influence we have over our families as husbands. We can change the atmosphere.
That's great.
And, and it just blew my mind, and it's true. We have influence over our children, just like our wives have tremendous influence over us as men.
Good. That's really calling too.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh no, and we do get a lot of you talking about women, right? And a lot of the women call, over social media or just commenting on our site. They say, well, save the boys. Why? What about us? What about us ladies? I think it'd be good to address that, Stephen, because we've been getting a lot of feedback on that. Like a lot of women's like, I want this for me, because I'm a single mom. I'm struggling. And by the way, we're working on something. But Stephen, can you talk about that a little bit? That letter in the beginning about how we address the women and the moms.
What we're doing, David, is it looks like it is for the fathers. It is for the boys. Okay, you got to get dad right, or a man is the guy to lead the boy, and the man it just is. That's the way it is. And so a lot of times ladies feel like Marcus is expressing, they've expressed to us in very kind ways, but they're saying, what about us? What about our girls? What about the daughters?
Yeah.
That's a great question. It is a concern. And for us, it is the key concern, actually. The way I expressed it in the book is that the words in the book are for the dads, but all the spaces in between the letters are for the ladies. It's really for them, because when the men are right, the ladies blossom. The ladies become fully who they're supposed to be in the world and in the family, in the marriage. And so when a man is right, then the ladies just are enabled to be effervescent in their beauty and goodness that they bring to life. And so we are for the ladies, even though we're not addressing them directly. What we're doing, we realize, is actually going to benefit them in very special ways. Of course, they benefit us in return. It's a everybody wins. So that's what we're doing for the ladies. That's our short answer at this point.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you guys 100%. When a man is right, his world is right, and what I mean by that is everything around him, that influence that he has, a spirit of influence that God has commanded him to have influence over, whether it be at his home or workplace. We believe that our first ministry is our home, and if you can get that right, because that is your training ground, right?
Yeah.
How you treat your spouse, how you treat your children is a training ground for you and also for your kids. That's where they're learning how to become adults and be productive members of society. So yes, there is going to be a benefit when you captivate and you grab the men's heart. I think we tend to focus more on men's right now because men are leaders by God, designed to us by God. That's our rightful place. That is what God has assigned us as men, to be leaders of our household, priests of our household, not in this self-serving way, but as dying to ourselves and putting others first, our families first. And what a better example than Jesus Christ dying on the cross and serving us. I mean, throughout Scripture, we constantly see Jesus serving others, even to the point where he was washing his disciples' feet. That's a servant leader,
It is. That is so good, Dave. You're really hitting at the heart of something that's really important. Our society right now is really struggling to define what is a man, right? I mean, it's kind of lost our footing to the point that we are just falling all over ourselves. But we've tried to define a man biblically and in a way that's simple and understandable and rememberable. And so the way we say, really what you just said, but the way we are saying to our guys that we meet is that a man is a giver and a boy is a taker. Boys are self-centered. They think about themselves. It's all about me, me, me. But men are like Jesus. They think about others first. That's it. So he's our model, and it's about being givers versus takers. And how do you transition a boy's heart from being selfish or self-centered to one that dies to itself and lives for others? So how you transition that is part of our mission.
I agree. I think more and more people need the answer to that, even though it's clearly in the Bible, right? But what I believe is sometimes people are going to watch you, and that's probably the only Bible they're going to ever open up, is watching you and what you do and your deeds and the fruit of that, right? I do know that as fathers, our responsibility, our debt that we owe our children is to raise them up in morals, values, personal responsibility, and self-control. That is a adult, in my opinion. That is somebody who is not this 35-year-old man who is still playing in the basement, video games and failure to launch out of his mother's basement, right? You know what I mean? It's our debt that we owe not only to our children, but to society, is to raise up men.
Yeah. I agree. That part of you mentioned something about how we're a model or we're an example for our family. We're a template. I like this to talk in counseling. I'm with people and I say, for parents, especially your dad, is a template of who God is. So you learn through him. You get an image of who God is through him. And if you get a bad image, it is really hard to overcome that. So if dad is overbearing and legalistic and just harsh, you have a hard time seeing a God that is tender and kind and compassionate. And if dad is not present, if he's here and there, hit and miss, promise doesn't follow through, you have a hard time believing in a faithful God that you can really lean into and trust. And so, but if you've seen that in your dad, then you have an easier time believing in a God that is that way. So important that dads show up and that they set the model for the future faith of this young man that they're raising, for these children they're raising.
And that's what I'm seeing today more than ever too, is because of that failure of misrepresenting God to our children, right? We're seeing more and more people fall away from the faith. Oh, that was my parents' religion. Oh, they were Christians. I don't want no part of that. We see this rebellion throughout society. You know what I mean? Where children are just turning away from that. And one of the things that I preach when I have people that come to me and say, hey, what do I do with this rebellious child? And it's like, well, let's look at where rebellion spawns from. Rebellion actually comes from when you are not emulating what you're preaching to them. You know what I mean? Rebellion actually comes from hypocrisy. And I don't know. And it's crazy. It's astronomical how many people actually are believers in the church that this is happening to. We're supposed to be the light of the world. We're supposed to be showing the people out of the fold, out of the faith, what it is to be believers. And instead we're failing at the same rate as they are.
Right.
No, I agree. Yeah. I'd like to say something about that. That's, that hits home for me. It's like, there's a famous saying, that my father-in-law has said is, it's not taught, it's caught. You know? And, just being a light and, connection before correction too is another thing we always talk about. So it's about first connecting with your kids so they admire you. They actually want to be around you. They want to listen to you. They want to spend time because they're not feeling attacked all the time, or they're like, where their parents' fingers right in front of their face. And then it's that showing and modeling that I found through even my own mistakes. My son has told me that now at 15. He's like, Dad, you sometimes say things, but that you don't do them. And I'm like, oof. And that hit home, And look, we're all growing, right? We're all growing in our faith. We're growing in our experience. And I want to encourage the dads out there. Sometimes some of the dads out there they're like, oh, I'm just not getting it right. I'm not getting it right. But those are the dads I think are doing great because they care to say that. they care to say that enough that it's like, I got to be there more, or
Mhm.
I want to show up, right? I want to show
Yeah.
I love you. The name of your show is like about showing up every day.
Mhm.
Sometimes you're not going to get it right, but if your kids see that you're connecting with them, that you're modeling it, then yeah, you'll fail them, right? But
Yeah.
there's that famous verse, right? It's like, show them the way they should go. When they get old, they will not depart from it. I love that
Amen.
verse. So be encouraged, men out there, right?
Mhm.
If you're just showing up every day. So
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%, man. Thank you for that. Steven, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, when you show up, here's what to do. Okay, if I can give that one thing I've learned over the last few years, that it's just, this is gold.
Yeah.
This is powerful. This is it. And everybody can do it. You got to do it. Okay.
Mhm.
You've got to show delight in your child. And you do it by saying, just when you see them in the morning, when they come out of school to come out and meet you at the car, when you walk in the room, whenever you turn and you see them, you just brighten up. You
Mhm.
just, hey, you don't have to act silly and goofy. You just have to be glad to see them and look at them, look at their face, look at their eyes and say, how you doing? What's going on? I'm so glad to see you. I mean, I saw this in counseling as I work with people. We go back in their history, we do a little family tree of genealogy. We go back and we find it. Who had influence in your life? Who influenced your life in order that you would come to a Christian counselor as opposed to a non-Christian? Or maybe who influenced your life so that you went down a bad path? And it goes back to someone, maybe usually a grandparent, but someone who showed delight in them. So if granddad said, come on, let's jump in the truck, we'll go down here, we'll fish and drink. Well, you grow up and what do you like to do? Fish and drink. He said, where did it come from? Well, maybe granddad liked cars and he would get you to go out and work in the garage with him. But he invited you in. He had delight in you being around, liked you being around. Well, you probably tinker with cars.
Mhm.
On the other hand, if he was a Christian church-going guy, but he scowled and he never showed you any attention, he was always too busy, you don't want to be involved in a church or religion either because there's no delight in it. So the thing you can do is show your kids delight. Just the way you look at them and the positive response to their presence. That's the number one thing to do. And it is so powerful. Then they'll follow you. They really will follow you.
It's amazing how that little thing right there, just how important looking at them and making that facial contact with them. They say that 55% of communication is visual. And that's a perfect example right there. You know what I mean? When you're even, let's say, disciplining your children and you're giving them the look like you're going to pay the man, or, just scowling at them and stuff like that. It's like, dude, do you understand what you're telling that kid? What you're showing them? If you understood how much our response to them is, we're misrepresenting God. Like we talked about earlier, we're supposed to be representation of God. But in those moments, and I'm guilty of it myself, we are misrepresenting God to our children. How many times has he came out of the sky and peeled back clouds and be like, look, you're going to pay, you're bad, you're hateful, but I didn't like the way you did, you failed here. And, just looking at you with these, scornful eyes and stuff like that. He's never done that. So why are we doing that to our children too?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the prayer and the Aaronic prayer, the Aaronic blessing, where Aaron is supposed to speak over the people. He says it. He says, the Lord lift his face, make his face shine upon you. That's exactly it. It's to say, because God knows when you do that, when he gets your eye contact and you see his face and he's delighted to see you, you will follow. It's powerful and it's illustrated.
Powerful.
It's exemplified right there. And there's times when you got to draw the boundaries and be out disciplined, but it's not out of, I don't want you. It's because I do want your good and I can't let you put your hand in the fire. So no, don't put your hand in the fire kind of thing. But it's not out of, I'm disgusted with you and you're no good. It's because you're so valuable that I just don't want you to have any pain in your life. So I've got to draw some boundaries to keep you safe. And things will go well. So yeah, that delight thing is one thing I would say that it helps. And we have a lot of boys stuck. You mentioned this earlier, stuck in adolescence. A lot of men, 30s,
Yes.
are playing games, and they're just wasting their life. They're stuck in adolescence. And Marcus mentioned this earlier. It's an extended adolescence. Just going way beyond what it used to be.
Mhm.
Boys in past generations were 16, were out breaking territory somewhere, starting families, and holding down the very important responsibilities. And nowadays, it's guys that are 26 or older are still at home. And so how do we break that? And part of that is part of our mission is that's got to stop. How to do it, how to lead a boy to become a man in his early years, 12, 13, 14, 15, how to get that done so that it's marked down. He knows it. You know it. You can look back on the day, the hour, the minutes. Our society doesn't provide that.
Hmm. So, what do you think are some of the key challenges that young boys face in today's society from stepping out from being a boy into manhood?
Oh, there are many. The extended adolescence is one thing they're facing. Father absence or father
Father absence.
disengagement.
Hmm.
Either dad isn't there or he's not engaged. Like Marcus was mentioning earlier, he's busy working or playing games or just in his own world. He's just not, or he doesn't know how to engage with his son because he
Yeah.
doesn't understand, didn't get the delight connection, or he just wasn't shown from his history how to do it. So he doesn't know how to do it. So
Mhm.
that's really causing our boys to have a difficult time. And then society itself is casting new visions or definitions of what a man is or isn't. And specifically, it's really demeaning the value of manhood and making it embarrassing so that young boys and young men are a little embarrassed to raise their hand and say, to be a strong male, be a strong man. They're a little embarrassed to raise their hand and say, I'm one of those. They kind of, because they get shouted down or they get scolded or it's not popular or whatever. So we've got a lot of pressure in the negative against moving into manhood instead of so much pressure to move forward into it. And then the
Yeah.
definition is not clear either. What are we talking about? Macho guy? Or are we talking about rich guy? Or
Mhm.
what are we talking about? So those are all negatives.
I think whenever you have a vacuum like that, and now we're seeing it more than ever, everybody's talking about toxic masculinity. I had a great conversation with Dr. Stephen Poulter, which is a really good friend of ours, and he talks about toxic masculinity and all these women that reach out to him about how society has changed, how what is represented of being a man today, lifting weights and doing jujitsu, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, right? But I think it's gone skewed to where it's not just about being that provider, that protector, looking a certain way. It's more like you said, delighting in your children and taking that time, that gentleness, right? A truly masculine man knows who he is. He knows that he can go and chop wood if he needs to. He knows he can go and hunt for his children and provide that way. He knows how to do all these things already, but that doesn't define him either. He also knows that he's there to be the priest of his home, to pray for his wife, right? To wash her with the word when she's at her darkest time, when she's afraid. When our children are in a place where they are confused because a teacher's telling them certain things at school and they're coming home and asking you, right? And we're supposed to address that. That's a truly masculine man. And I think we need to get back to that, understanding our roles and understanding what God's called us to do and what the definition of a masculine man is. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. The problem is that what a man is not external.
No.
It's internal. It's
Yes.
character. It's heart. It's attitude. Yeah, I mean, a guy's physically a male, but that doesn't make him a man. He could be 30 years old and still be a boy because
Yes.
his thinking is his attitude. He's self-centered, and when he moves to be other focused, then he becomes a man. And as he moves into that, he matures in that manhood. And what we see these days is we got some guys that are, I don't know, in every physical or visible way, they've got a lot of markings of being tough guys or strong guys or men, macho, whatever they may be, rich and famous, but they're not men. They just are not. I mean, there are some famous ones who are wealthy and run big corporations, but you watch how they behave. They're very self-centered, and they don't. They are not what we want our boys to be. They're not what really will make men for the future. So
what's crazy is we're seeing a lot of the trends too. Like there's a lot of people buying into their programs. A lot of people are buying into this program, how to look a certain way, how to get your wife back, how to do this, how to do that. They're buying into this whole ideology and their whole persona of, like you said, the tough guy, the tattoos, the muscles, the all this different stuff. You know what I mean? They're buying into that, and it's like what is it that you define as a man? You know what I mean? That's my first question. Like, if I was ever going to go into one of these programs or whatever, you know what I mean? If I was looking to be a part of a tribe, because I think more than ever, I think men are out there and they're searching. It's a proven fact. Everybody's searching for that void, that missing part, whether they didn't get it from their father or whatever it may be, right? They're missing that. So they're searching for a group so they can identify with. You know, it's no different than why little boys join gangs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Micah 6:8 is one verse that I love, and it's, walk humbly. A man is humble, humble and kind. Who sang that song? Be humble and kind. I know it's a country singer, and I forgot who it was, but love mercy, love and emulate what Christ has done for him, right? Do justice, do the right thing. And what is the right thing? And then Stephen, I'm sure, has a list, but that's always been a great verse. There's so many others. I think what defines a man personally is what's within his word of how he instructs us to be as men. Everybody reinvents the wheel, but it's all there.
It's all there.
Stephen, do you want to take that and expand?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's Jesus. He is the man. He is the model of what we should be. I think that the movie, the series Chosen, has done an excellent job of giving us sort of a theatrical paraphrase of the Gospels, and it makes them a little more viewable, visible. People are picking up on that view of him that makes him a little bit more of a tangible character they can kind of see. But I've watched and one of the things that's illustrated in that show is part of what we are missing and what is important for us, and it's an invitation. When he invites those men, come follow me. Come, in other words, come watch. And that was more than just like, get in behind me, let's walk together. That was like, come and live life the way I'm living it. Be my disciple, is to be that. And dads, I saw this in East Africa. David, I lived over there for 10 years in Kenya, and with a tribal community and speak the language and ate with them, wonderful people. We got to know them very well. And I watched how they made their boys into men, how they turned them into men. And they have every December, this particular group had a month of seclusion where they took the young boys away. And the men spent time with them, teaching, indoctrinating, training them, testing them. But it started with an invitation, and the men would say, this year is your year to become a man. Do you want to come? Well, yeah, I want to be a man. Do you want to stay a boy? You want to be a man? Yeah, every boy inside, the time he's some of them younger, 7 or 8, but by the time they're 10, 12, 13 years old, they're chomping at the bits to grow up. And they don't want to be stuck hanging out with moms, they want to go out with the guys and be adventurous. So an invitation is part of what's missing, is that we need dads and mentors to step up and say, hey, are you ready to come be a man? I want to show you how to do that. And then, the next steps. There are a few other steps. As part of rite of passage in all societies, it's a calling. So we see it in Jesus. And he says,
Yeah.
come, follow me. It's an invitation.
I like that illustration. The invitation. I do believe that there's a lot of cultures out there, whether it be Aboriginals or, with their walkabouts or whatever, where they do have this rite of passage. And it's unfortunate that in America, a lot of times we don't see that. I do know that one of the churches out here in Southern California has something kind of similar to that for boys. It's called Emerge Men, right? Where you take your child at an age, I think like 12 or 13, and they go through this crazy obstacle course. And the last leg of this obstacle course, the father goes and just, because it's pretty rough on him, right? And he's just sitting there, just going with him, just encouraging his son to finish up the race. You know what I mean? And they all emerge at this big old cross up in Southern California. You know what I mean? It's just a beautiful sight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of a rite of passage that they put out, right? My rite of passage that I remember having was when I killed my first deer. And I remember my father, he took out the heart and he gave it to me, and he's like, here you go. And he kind of like rubbed it on my face, my nose and stuff like that. And he's like, now you're a man, he tells me, and I remember that was kind of my little rite of passage, you know what I mean, that I went through,
and it's so important that the dads have this power that I don't think they realize they have it, but they have this innate ability that when they say, you are one of us, it goes down to the core. I mean, the boys it goes in it makes a change. It's something inside their identity shifts.
Yes.
When the men come, especially with the fathers and grandfather, when the patriarchs, when they come together and they say, now, because of this, you are now one of us. That's what I saw in East Africa. That's what we're working on. That's what I do with my sons. And so this has been studied. It's all over the world. Almost every culture, except the Western cultures, have a defined process for this. But they pretty much have three parts to them. Actually, what Marcus and I are working with is four. We've added something, but there are three. The first one is the invitation. We just talked about come, follow the inviting, a call to manhood. And then there's that time in the middle where it's in limbo, whether it's called a time of liminality, where you're not a boy fully, you're moving away from that, but you're not yet the man, so you're kind of in the middle. And that's usually where there's some kind of challenging things. You mentioned that with that group that you're familiar with. There's some challenges. Conversations are really important.
Yes.
So these are where the deep talks go deep. And there has to be a connection on that level of thinking and of heart with the older men and the young initiates. It's not hazing. It shouldn't be hazing, and it is not. It's not just putting near-death experiences. There are challenges there, but it's different than that, And so, and then there's a reassimilation, which is when they come home. They emerge, they come back out and back to society, back to the home, back to the community, and the community's response and acknowledgement of their now having changed from boy to man, being now seen by the community as being mature or responsible for more mature things. That combination of things it transforms. It really does. And we need it. And thankfully, I see many other entities beginning to put some things out there, authors we've read, putting out ideas and pushing that direction. And that's, of course, that's where we are. And so I think I'm so glad to see it happening. Our society needs it.
No, I can't agree more with you. I mean, it definitely needs it. Now talking about that, Stephen, how can fathers support empowering the young boys with some of the challenges of going from being a boy to a man? How can a father really, walk alongside them, I guess I should say, you know what I mean, and support them, especially with all the different stuff that we have at school, society saying this is what a boy needs to be and stuff like that. How can fathers really gather and capture your child's heart to be able to be a louder voice to them,
Good.
than what society is.
Great question. And that is the dilemma that men are facing. So we're going to give them some help here. I believe this is going to be very practical steps. One is delight. I think you have to be doing that. We talked about that earlier. That's the first step. Your words are powerful. What you say. And I don't mean that you don't. I'm saying this. You need to compliment their character. So it's one thing to say, "Hey, nice hair." Okay, you got nice hair. Or yeah, well, that was a good hit. You got a triple. Good job. That's good. But to say, son, you're a hard worker, or I see that you try hard, or I appreciate the fact that you're sensitive to others, that you pay attention, that you stick with things. Those are character things. Speak to those, and then you can use your words also to cast a vision. And you say, "Son, I really believe one of these days you're going to be a great father. I believe one of these days you're going to be a great man. I trust that you're going to be a helper to others. I can already see that you are gifted at building and construction. You have creativity. You're a musician. I see those things. You're going to bring good things to the world through that." I mean, you cast that vision, and they'll take one of those and they'll develop it. They will. They'll have that power. In the meantime, to address your question is really directly, if you have a boy that is younger, let's say he's early teens down, I think it's very important that you invite him. You let him know it's coming. So when my guys were 7 and 9, I would say, I took them aside, maybe at birthday or just someday, I took them out by themselves and sat down and said, "Son, I want to tell you something." My oldest boy is named Daniel. So I said, "Daniel, one of these days, I'm going to take you on a special trip, and we're going to talk about being men, and you're going to become one. And I'm going to answer all your questions about manhood. Just me and you. One of these days. Does that sound good?" "Yeah, Dad, that sounds good." And that's all I said. So we'll talk about it later. But he was like 9 or 10. So then the next year, his birthday, I said, "You remember that trip we talked about? The me and you trip, the man trip thing? It's coming. When you turn 13, we're going, just want you to know I remember." He'll have questions, but I say, just wait. Men can wait. I'm training already. Men can wait. Men can be patient. Men have self-control. So you're building character right there. "Okay, Dad," but you're building suspense. When he hits 13, I'm telling you, he's there saying, "Guess what, Dad? I'm 13 or 12 or whatever you decide. It's time to go." I said, "Good. I'm so glad you're excited. I'm excited. We're going to do it." And I planned the trip, and I took them on this trip. So you can begin when they're little by telling them there's a day where I'm going to lead you into becoming a man. I'm going to answer your questions. I will not embarrass you. I will give you answers because I am a man. And if I can't answer the question, I will help you find answers. But I'm on your team, and I want you to be a great man, and you're going to be that. We're going to make sure you're not by yourself. So you pour that into a young guy, he'll come along with you. If he's older, let's say he's 15, 17, or older now, even 20s or 30s, what are you going to do? I talked to a guy one time who was 80, superintendent of schools. He had retired, and he said, "I've got boys that are 59 and 60. What's a Marine? I'm a retired Marine. What do I do with them?" I said, "Well, I don't know. Let's think about it." So he came back to me himself a week or two later. He said, "I got it." I said, "Okay, what?" He said, "We like to golf." He said, "I'm taking my 2 sons for a 3-day golfing trip to some place that they like to go to." And he said, "I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk to them. I missed that when I was too busy at school, superintendent. I was just too busy. I didn't give them the time I should have. I'm going to go back and I want to take some of these things that you've been talking about and writing about, and I'm going to apply those back then. Forgiveness. You're getting forgiveness between one another and some other things that he missed." Well, he did it. And it turned out great with them. I mean, they're grown, but there's something, a connection there that was really important. And he was able to deliver it even as they're in their late 50s or 60 years old. So dads need that connection to let the son know, "I'm with you and I want to lead you, and I'm here to walk with you into and through whatever things you have to face." Just a little talk with them that assures them of that is really going to go a long way. Now, Marcus mentioned sometimes your kids are going to say, "I don't think I can trust you." Well, what do you do with that? Or they say, yeah, I don't like you, or you've done me wrong in the past. What do? You apologize. That's what you do.
Yes.
You say, son, I am sorry I hurt you. They may have misunderstood what you were doing. Dad's out working a lot. A lot of us sometimes we have to put in a lot of hours to make the money to take care of the family. And the kids may misinterpret that as we don't care because we're not at their ball game or we're not whatever. And so they'll come at some point, you'll find out that they're hurt or angry. And when you find that out, what you say is, I'm sorry that I've hurt you. I'm sorry that I made you angry. You don't explain it to them. Oh, you don't understand. I was working because he needed food and what. No, you just say, I'm sorry. I don't want to hurt you. Can you forgive me? That reestablishes the relationship and it lets them know you're on their team. But that's what they need. So those are things they can do to move forward.
Man, I love that. I absolutely love that because it's so true. And it's all about training, like you said, even down to showing them, right, what humility is. And that's exactly what you're doing as a father when you're able to take responsibility and tell them, forgive me. And it shows them that you're vulnerable too. It shows them that, hey, man, men do cry sometimes too. Men can't say I'm sorry, and men do make mistakes. One of the things that really hit me hard is when I was really being harsh with my daughter, and she finally turned around and says, Dad, I am not perfect like you. I can't be perfect like you. And I was just like, God hit me right through the chest with that. I'm like, man, honey, I am so sorry. Forgive me. I didn't know I was doing that. My intention was to push you to become better, not push you away from me. And then I'm reminded of that scripture that says, fathers, do not exasperate your children. And that's exactly what I was doing. I was exasperating my daughter, But in order to restore that relationship that you're talking about, I had to come before her, humble myself, and ask for forgiveness for that,
And there are no perfect fathers.
No.
They're going, I'm not perfect. Oh, my goodness.
Wait, you really?
I made a ton of mistakes. My dad before me was alcoholic and had a lot of problems. And his dad for him, an alcoholic. There's been a lot of dysfunction in our lineage. So I got a bunch of broken stuff to work with, and then I came with my own. But humility and honesty and an attempt to do the right thing, a move in the right direction is what we look for, not perfection. There's no such thing as perfection, but direction is important. And if you are moving towards, your children know, I'm for you. I am on your side. I want the best for you in life. That goes a long ways to cover the mistakes that you make on trying to get them there.
And just think of that picture you're painting for them too. I mean, because like we talked about how young boys are often drawn to gangs or seedy places because of wanting to fit in and follow the crowd, right? And that's what we're seeing more than ever. We're seeing a lot of followers out there, right? And I think that with that being said, you're showing them that, hey, man, I am walking alongside you. I accept you. And guess what? You're welcomed here. You're what I mean? Acceptance is like one of the biggest things for people. We all want to feel accepted or feel like we're a part of something,
Yeah, absolutely. That is a power that you have to bring to the table to win their heart, is to accept them. People want to be loved. Everybody wants to be loved. And to be loved means, at the lowest level, it means you're included. I want you on my team. Or I want to hang out with you. I like to be with you. And so when you communicate that to them, it matters to them. And if they don't get it from you, they will look for it somewhere else. And the first person who acts like, pretends or tricks them and says, hey, you can be one of us. All you got to do is go shoot 3 people or steal something or whatever. But you'll be one of us and we like you. We'll keep you in our family. That's what they'll do because they aren't full somewhere else. So you got to get in there and say, I'm sorry if I've been failing, and also say, but I'm on your team and let's work together. And it's it's little incremental drops of that consistently that matter. So yeah, when you say you're going to do something with them, do it. That's right. And if you mess up, you say, "Whoop, messed up," and I'm going to change that.
I like that you said that, and just going back to, like, say we're talking about our sons, right? Well, what about our daughters too, and the acceptance they're going to seek out in another man because you didn't give them that acceptance at home. I have an older daughter, and man, that was one of the things that I always was like, oh my gosh, Lord, please have mercy on me. Please show me your grace. I am messed up, right? And fortunately, I was fortunate enough to have a mentor reach out to me and want to disciple me to become a pastor, to become better, to understand about parenting as a ministry. And he's been discipling me and both my wife for about almost a year and a half now. And man, it's just opened up so much. It's opened my eyes up to so much more through God's word, and where I was feeling what I had taken from society, taken from my parents, and kind of made up this mixed up jumble of what I thought parenting was. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And it just really shined its light through God's word onto the things that were wrong, wrong way of thinking. And it's made a complete difference. For sure.
I want to add something there. I have a story about mentorship where my father, I love my father, by the way. I don't want to ever defame my father, from Italy, and came over here. He had a hard life, getting himself up and going. So he did the best he could. But, when I met my wife, I met my father-in-law. And before that, when I met the guy that mentored me as I brought Christ into my life, those two guys, Don and Dave, I wouldn't be here without them. So even if you don't have a dad, what if those kids don't have a dad? It's getting that right, also that right mentor. And I wanted to say this because mentorship's huge.
Yes.
And you as a man, if there's a man out there that sees a boy that doesn't have a father, that could be an opportunity, for you to be used by God and to mentor a young man. I have a heart for young men that don't have dads.
Mm-hmm.
I've known them, and it's tragic, but there's hope, right?
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to say that because it's so cool hearing you, David, that you saw the power of mentorship in your own life, and you drew from that. You drew from the well of wisdom. That's why we are doing what we're doing at Father is, when we first started it, it was about the voice of a father. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot. I want to explain this because before we end this is a lot of people connotate father as a bad thing sometimes.
Yes.
What we're trying to do is turn that upside down, where the Father's voice, who is above us, that's the Father that we're talking about with Father Magazine, Father Media Group. It's his voice. It's that voice. And that chair, that logo that you see on our site, that should be a place of refuge for sons, for men, or for anybody. Being able to come to the Father's chair, to sit down on his lap and hearing his voice in your ear, so that you're guided in a place that you're going to thrive. And so we want to give the voice of a father to men, maybe that didn't even have that voice, that mentorship, that sage-like voice. Because there is hope when you do have the right people around you, so I just wanted to mention that. So.
Yeah, and that's what we're called to do, right? We're called to make disciples of men.
That's right.
And that's exactly what you guys are doing. You're discipling these men who need the training, what I mean? We all need it,
Yeah.
Every single
every
one
day.
of us.
I still call my mentors. I still call my father-in-law almost every day. It seems like I probably bug him too much. But, yeah.
I wanted to... Go ahead, Stephen.
I was just going to add on that. When a few years ago, I had a local friend. So one of my boys played baseball with some kids on the team, and one of the boys' dad was not present. So his mother was a friend of my wife's, so got to talking, and she just said, "Yeah, I don't know what to do with him. I'm losing control at 13, 14 years old. I'm just not sure what to do. So can you help him out? Can you help us out?" So I invited him on one of these trips these man about trips that we have, these man trips. So I invited him, and I just initially said, "Hey, if you want to come on one of these man trips, like I've taken my sons on, you let me know." Just left it because I want to see him if he would buy in. It took him about 5 months. Finally, he said, "Mr. Meeks, you know that trip you were talking about? Yeah, man trip. Yeah, I'd like to go." I said, "Good. I'll talk to you about it later." So I let it simmer just a little bit to grow, kind of wait because that's part of the training. And then we put it together, and my son and that was his friend, and another older son that I have, and a guy who became my son-in-law. I knew he was on the path. He was 25. He was on the path, interested in my daughter, and I thought he was a good catch. I liked him a lot. So, but I wanted him to see this too. So I took them all on the trip, and on that trip, I took the this neighbor lady's son. She agreed to everything. A lot of eyes there, circle bodies above board, everything. Say, we took him on this big trip, and we came to a point where I just had to call him out. And I said, "I've seen you on the field, and I've seen how you threw temper tantrums." I said, you can't do that. I had him holding a big rock at the time, by the way. It was this stone. We're about to get in the paddle off somewhere. And I said, "I want to take you out of here. I want to talk to you about being a man on this trip. We're going to go to an island out here. We're going to have a conversation. You're going to come back a man. But you have got to lay down your pride. A man cannot be a man carrying pride. You think you know better than the coaches, the rest. That was ugly. That was wrong. You can't carry that. Do you want to put that aside or not? Because we can go back and you go back home and have a good fishing trip. It's been fun, since you won't be a man." I just left that. That's pretty heavy, but
Yeah.
I just left it with him. He's holding his 30-pound stone, by the way, because I had him hold it. He didn't know why. So he's sweating. I mean, he's really pouring sweat, and you can see his jaw. He's really badly inside with, I'm mad about being asked. I don't like that you said that. I wasn't mean. I was just frank with it. Man talk, right? And so he listened, and then I saw him relax, and he looked at me, kind of opened his eyes, looked up at me. He said, "Yes, sir. I'm ready to lay down." I said, Good. Now hold that rock. Don't drop it." So I held the canoe. He stepped in the canoe, got his position. We went out a little ways. I said, "Okay, now gently lean it over so you don't turn us over, and release that stone into the water." So he let go. It slid out. I said, "How you feel?" He said, "A lot better. That thing was killing me." I said, "Yes, pride will kill you. You can't pick it up and carry it around. You'll never go where you ought to go. You'll never be who you should be. Well, glad you got rid of it. Now let's go make you a man." We went out to the island. We had some conversations. He made some commitments. But that's the kind of thing. Symbolism with teaching, with deep decisions. That's the kind of thing that when you come back from that, you can say, "I know. I made some changes. I know what a man is, and I am in it." And then you lead them in, afterwards. But he came back home about 2 weeks later. His mom said, "What'd you do out there?" I said, "I just took you on the trip." But she said, "No." She said, "Our home has so much peace." I said, "I didn't think I was going to make it beforehand, but it's just so peaceful. He's so changed." I said, "Good. He's being a man." So a man can do that with a young man who's not his own. If he knows how to do it, he can pull that out for and bless that kid and change the world. To avoid all that pain that we were talking about.
And definitely having a peaceful home is the fruit of that, man. Well, once again, thank you, Marcus and Stephen, for coming on our broadcast, our show. And I'll have on the show notes how people can reach out to you guys and
Save the Boys,
see your program.
SaveTheBoys.us, or the larger scope is fathermagazine.com. So.
Well, right on, guys. Thank you so much. And we look forward to staying in touch with you and seeing what you guys do, man. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having us, David. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.